trouble getting in, Martin. Sorry.
That's okay, but you didn't pop on the screen, so there was no way I could let you in. Morning, Becky. Becky, good morning.
Morning.
Good. You all right? Got you down for about 20 minutes, Becky.
I can probably be a bit quicker. I think you're all kind of used to the report, aren't you? So
I couldn't see anything in it that caused us problems, so you've got 20 minutes basically. It was a window.
Chairman, the webcast is live now. Thank you.
Okay, right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Audit and Standards Committee, Tuesday the 9th of February. I'll begin as we go through the agenda. Item 1, apologies.
Only apologies from Steve Clark from Ernst Young, Chairman.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay. Item 2 then, declarations of interest. Anybody?
Chairman, probably only in item 5, as I seem to be referred to many times in dispatches during standards and code of conduct.
I think you've been forgiven now, David. It's all right. You're not a shareholder.
Well, it sometimes feels like it, Chairman.
Well, somebody's got to be responsible for it.
They say harmless, Chairman.
Yeah, definitely. Right, then we'll move on. Item 3, the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of December. Is it your wish I signed it as a true and accurate record, please?
Yes, Chair.
Agreed.
I'll move that, Chair.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Julie, if you can sign that off then, please. Right, and then we're on to item 4, which is the Health and Safety and Wellbeing Performance Annual Report from Becky Lee. Becky, the stage is yours.
Okay, so I'll probably take you to section 4. The introduction is the normal arrangement. So we've embedded mankind campaign over the last 2 years now. Everyone go on mute. I'm getting a lot of feedback.
That's what I was going to say. Can we all come?
And everybody turn off their microphones. Keith, that means you.
Okay.
Right? Turn off the microphone. Turn off your video.
Yeah, when I can find it.
Okay, that sounds better, doesn't it? Okay, so we've embedded Mindkind campaign over the last few years. So we now have 150 mental health first aiders that have been trained across the organisation. And we've completed 2 years of the face-to-face training programme. Obviously, March 2020's face-to-face training had to be cancelled due to COVID. But during 2020, we implemented a digital option to keep that going. We launched wellbeing action plans to the organisation so that people can take their own proactive steps towards managing their own health and wellbeing. We are training across the organisation. So we've got a menopause website now and also menopause toolkits for staff to access, and we've done training for peers and training for managers, and then we've got peer support groups so that people can help others with the messages around menopause. So that's gone down really well across the organisation. The fire officer that we appointed has been working through our kind of arrangements within the organisation and helping us to review those, make any improvements we can around those, and has also been completing the fire risk assessments independently of the premise managers so that we've got an overview that those are to the standards and operating as we would like. So we've seen there some improvement and some upskilling of our premise managers as part of that process as well. We also launched the anti-terrorism new learning across the organisation. So, we've pushed that towards our premise managers in key roles where they're likely to benefit from that training, and also to our schools network. We reviewed our Think Well service, which is our in-house counselling service, and made sure through the retendering that there was a smooth transition for everybody involved. We've also looked at our CDM regulations and the kind of impacts from some of the work undertaken by our ICT colleagues to make sure again that we're fully compliant in that area. We've continued to deliver a vast amount of work to support managers in terms of guidance, including COVID. We've maintained our training programme and developed digital training where needed to cope with the impacts of COVID across the organisation. And we've maintained kind of our inspections and auditing arrangements across the council as well. A big thing we did in March was setting up the PPE response for the county council to make sure that all frontline roles across Staffordshire were supported with the PPE they needed to manage COVID during the response. That continues to date as well, and is likely to continue for a small while longer as well. And we've also supported many other sort of civil contingencies, so from dealing with the issues at Castle House, the Burton floods, wildfires and the Coma site incidents across Staffordshire. We've looked at those as well. So that's kind of an overview of our key achievements. In terms of improving the health of the workforce, our physiotherapy offer to staff has remained well used by our workforce, as has the Think Well service to support staff with their mental health and well-being. And Mindkind tools have been really used well and effectively, and we continue to support that with different campaigns and adding new materials. Flu vaccinations were offered out and we had a good uptake with just under 300 staff in the core county council taking that forward and over 900 staff in schools taking it forward as well. In terms of the outcomes of our audits, people are progressing really well, and we are seeing improvement in the sort of maturity scores that our audits are given. Our February and March audits within schools were impacted and had to be cancelled due to COVID because the schools were busy dealing with the impact of that commencing within their schools. In terms of accident and incident data, there's no real concerns highlighted by the report. The new tool that we have in place called My Health and Safety is really helping with the reporting arrangements, and we're seeing some great benefits from that. In terms of investigations, probably the ones to note are we had a HSE review of an incident in a school around the finger trap, and they took forward a notification of contravention in relation to that school's management of that. And therefore we did a response as the employer because it was a maintained school around that. They were satisfied with the action plan that we put forward. We also had an unfortunate incident in October 2019 on the Isabel Trail, which resulted in a fatal injury to a member of the public, and that is an ongoing investigation at the moment. The HSE continue with their investigations around that. Therefore, we have had for the first time some fee for intervention costs from the HSE in relation to the Isabel Trail. Joint consultation with trade union colleagues continued, and we've had really good arrangements in place, and they've supported on any projects that we've implemented. And in March, we set up weekly meetings to keep those colleagues informed. In terms of liability claims, they are reducing. However, it's always important to remember that in terms of the key actions for 2021, as you probably not unexpected, most of the work that will need to be done by the Health, Safety and Wellbeing team and will be important to the organisation is around the management of COVID response and recovery, managing our local outbreak control arrangements, and then ensuring that we maintain good arrangements around health and wellbeing for our workforce, as well as maintaining some of the essential health and safety business as usual activities. So that's an overview of the report, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Right then, members, questions? Yes, we've got. Let's see, we've got. Yeah. Anne, you want to ask a question?
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. Just a question, Becky. Excuse me. Have we got any idea of the percentage of staff that's been affected with mental illness and taken leave because of it? And what help are we giving them, please?
Because of COVID, do you mean, Anne?
Pardon?
Do you mean due to COVID?
Sorry, yes. Sorry, yes.
So what we did. So this report relates to just the only bit of the data in here is March for COVID. So we did see actually mental health referrals decrease during the first lockdown. What we have seen is as COVID has continued, then those referrals have returned back to kind of normal levels. So at the moment, we're keeping a close eye on that. So at the moment, it remains around 10% of our organisation access Think Well each year for support with their mental health and well-being. We do have some cases in where they are referring to the loneliness and the isolation from COVID, but we still, and lots of other people, it's just a part of the bigger mix of mental health issues that they're dealing with. So it's often not one issue alone in terms of mental health. It's obviously quite a complex area of different things in people's lives together that often mean they need the support. We've been doing regular campaigns to really try and keep people engaged. You probably see on the screen from your laptops at the moment, we've got a big campaign out at the moment about feel-good habits and trying to get people to think about the importance of doing small, simple things every day that make them feel good and to look after their own health and well-being. So we've got lots of activities like that on, but it's roughly around 10% of our workforce access Think Well each year.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you.
Thank you. And anybody else, please?
Chair, my hand's up.
Okay, I can't. I'm sorry. Yes, Keith.
Can I just say, I think that Keith James, my namesake, is actually screen sharing at the moment, which I think might be delaying the imaging on some of the screens because it's going through someone else's laptop or computer. I've got a very weird effect actually because there's a delay on the screen. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it's because Keith James is sharing his screen at the moment on the meeting.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll progress the best we can then.
Well, no, just ask Keith. Can you just stop screen sharing, Keith? You were doing it yesterday. Keith James, you're screen sharing. It's the one next to leave. Press that button again. There should be next. That's better. Right, now then.
We're back.
There we go. Mystery solved. Thank you.
Okay.
Right, can I continue now? Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you for doing it.
I'm an investigator. Health and safety, you see. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Morning.
Yes. Morning, Derek. If you could turn your video and your mic off till you speak, please, that'd be good. Thank you, Eric.
Right, can I?
Yes, Keith, progress.
Right, thank you so much. Just, obviously with COVID and everything else, there's quite a lot here, the projects that have been delayed. I just wondered if you could summarise what you're going to be doing to get back to some sort of normality as time goes on, about the financial well-being and Thrive accreditation, all these sorts of things that you mentioned in 4.2. Great to... Oh, Keith, what... Oh. Keith.
Keith.
Hello?
Can you hear me? That's good.
Right, he's back. Right. Great to see the numbers of claims and everything else has gone massively down. I can't believe the results that you've got in there. So I don't know what you've been doing since 2015, but in terms of the estimated costs and everything else, that's a fantastic piece of work. So I don't know how you can continue that. If you go much lower, there won't be anything at all, I don't think. 2019 was only 9. And then finally, just a quick question about numbers. Whether it's because your services are doing better, but the number of incidents overall on Appendix 1 does seem to be going up slightly overall. And there's a spike in 2018-19 for school accidents. And I just wondered if you could maybe make a comment on that, whether that's because you're now making more people aware of what you're doing, and therefore the number of accidents and incidents have increased. But I just wondered if you make a comment on that. So that was those three questions. Thank you, Chair. At last, I got to the end. Thank you.
Becky, please.
Oh, by the way, I will be nipping round for a quick game of Upward as well, just to relieve mental pressure later on. Right. Thanks. Sorry.
So, in relation to the areas of project work that we've had to spend, we've made a commitment that the things that we really want to progress are the financial wellbeing aspect and the loan worker monitoring. Those were two projects that we were progressing, and the need for those is even more strong now than it was before COVID. So those are the two pieces of work that we're looking at as a team to resource. So as we can release resource from supporting the COVID and local outbreak control, then those are two projects that we will take forward. My financial colleagues in Rob Simon's team are currently looking at the business case we've developed on financial wellbeing in terms of the finance due diligence. So once we have that, we'll be able to progress that one quite quickly. So those are ones we're hoping to get off the ground as soon as possible. In terms of audits and things like that have had to be suspended, then we've developed a remote audit process so that we can still do some good oversight with schools as they have more resource able to manage other things than COVID at the moment. As you can imagine, most senior leaders in schools at the moment spend all their time managing the COVID response. In terms of the incidents, we launched a new system in 2018-19. Schools really started to use it to try and record absolutely everything in, not just what we would call accidents, but also every sort of slip trip of a student over their own feet, everything in there, and they found that too overwhelming as well. So they've kind of sort of got that back in line really, but the new system did encourage people to report, which is really positive, and we saw an increase in those reports during that year. So it's going to be an interesting year because a lot of people have worked from home, so accident and incidents, as you can imagine, are down for 2021. So I think we will have to sort of take some new benchmarks as we move into our new norm of operating model as an organisation.
Thank you.
Do you want to say anything?
No, that's fine. Thank you. Answered all my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else out there in virtual world who wants to ask a question of Becky? No? Okay, Becky, thank you very much for your attendance today. Your presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you indeed, yes. And good luck, keep up the good work. We'll now move on to item 5, which is Local Government Association Model Code of Conduct for members proposed adopted Staffordshire County Council. So, Julie Plant.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. This report now submits for your consideration a final version of the Model Code of Conduct for Members, which has been produced by the Local Government Association. As you'll recall, we've reported previously to members on this proposed code and submitted some quite detailed and important observations at the consultation stage. This is the final version now submitted for your support, hopefully. We did consult group leaders just for information prior to formally drafting the report to test whether or not there was support for it, and they were in favour of the proposed code. Overall, compared with the version that we operate at the moment, it does provide some improvements, most specifically because it clearly states that the code is applicable whenever anyone is acting as a councillor or giving the impression that they're acting as a councillor, and there's clear guidance on when it would be applicable. There's clear guidance on every clause within the code on its meaning and interpretation of the phrases. And one of the key features is that from the outset, the catch-all description explains that it applies to all kinds of actions, including actions on social media. which is something that this committee has wanted to tighten up on and has itself introduced its own clauses in the current code. I'll draw your attention to paragraphs 7 and 8 of Appendix B, which refer to extending the declaration of financial interests to cover general financial interests. And whilst this code proposes that extension cover a member's family and close associates, we're suggesting that will be a little bit difficult to monitor and enforce, and for members to be mindful of, really, because to expect you to know the financial interests and well-being of wider associates might not be as easy as it's written. So we're needing member views on that. Added to the fact that there are two types of financial interest that you'd need to declare, you'd have to decide whether or not an interest directly relates or merely affects the financial interest or well-being of the individuals concerned. So views on that, please. In terms of our code, it's our code that we currently have. It is unique to Staffordshire. It is our own code. We didn't, the last time around, adopt the standard produced by the LGA under the Localism Act 2011. We produced our own. It has suited our purposes, but it hasn't necessarily been easy for some members who are members of districts and borough councils as well, because the codes have not tied in together as easily as they might do. Adoption of this code would help, because it's more than likely that that local authorities, districts and boroughs will adopt this one, so there'd be more consistency, albeit that we may have a slight variation if we don't go for the general pecuniary interests. The covering report goes on to talk about implementation date, and now that the 6th of May elections are confirmed as taking place, this will fall nicely into new code for a new cohort of members, and we always prioritise code of conduct training for members. It's practically the first thing that we ask you to attend when you're re-elected or newly elected, and so we'll work to have this ready for that time. One final point is that the LGA haven't referred to the internal resolution procedures, basically the process for dealing with standards complaints. So we had reviewed this, or this committee had reviewed this as recently as December 2019, introduced at the beginning of last year, all the changes. So we're suggesting that the procedure we already have is suited to this new code, should you wish to adopt the new code. At this point, Chairman, can I apologise, because I only realised quite recently that the copy of the flow chart that was in the printed agendas wasn't the full diagram, and I have emailed first thing this morning a copy of that diagram to members, so it should actually be in your emails if you've not been able to access them yet this morning. Apologies again, Chairman, for that. Turning to the code itself, which is appended to the report, just quickly, it has lots of introductory text which explains in more detail the circumstances in which it will apply, goes into detail of the principles, the Nolan principles and the guidance and undertakings, which essentially are the core of your current code of conduct. And then it details 10 specific points, each with an explanatory note, hopefully making it clear for members what's required of them under each one. Towards the end, there is the issue of the declaration. At point 9, there is the declarations of interest covered, and point 10 is gifts of hospitality, which members particularly discussed when we bought the consultation paper, and the amount of the value of a gift for declaration was what we focused on at that time. And it's pleasing to see that this code actually ups that value from £25 to £50, which was roughly what members were supporting. There was a discussion between £50 and £100, but the 50 is an improvement on what was there before. The code, as I've printed it, as I've explained at the covering report, I've tried to put footnotes and highlight the comments that this council submitted, so you can see where our comments have actually been reflected in the new code. Happy to take questions, Chairman. Thank you.
I have 4 people who want to ask a question, so we'll start with Caroline Trowbridge, please. Caroline?
Thank you, Chair. And I'm glad to hear your voices back, Julie. I hope you're feeling better now.
Some might not share that sentiment, Councillor Trowbridge.
You've asked us to discuss section B 8. I think if we just added the wording in where a matter arises at a meeting which you knowingly affects. Because that way, the financial interest and well-being of a friend, like you said, you're never going to know it all. But if you do actually know that your best friend is JCB and we're just taking on a load of new diggers, then you should declare. So I think if we just put "if you knowingly" in that sentence, I think it works in my view.
Okay, are you happy with that?
I'm open for other people to disagree with me or
Well,
something more.
Let's get through the questions and then we'll have a chat about it afterwards. So Susan, please, Susan Woodward.
Thanks, Chairman. I think knowingly does make a difference, and I would support what Caroline says there. We've had a lot of discussion around this, and I think every member's had the opportunity to have some input. I would move paragraph B, that it goes to full council as the adopted code of conduct. I think we can, angels dancing on the head of a pin, we can always find slight details that may make a difference. But I think it's important that as a local government family as a whole, we adopt as closely as possible the local government family's code of conduct so that everybody can be seen to be operating by the same set of rules. It doesn't cover every eventuality. No set of rules, regulations, laws does, and it only gets tested when complaints and so on arise. So I would be happy to move the code of conduct goes to full council for adoption.
Okay, before I go into the other two questions, John Tradewell, did you want to say something?
Thank you, Chair. It was just to pick up on the point raised by Councillor Trowbridge. I think what I would suggest in terms of wording is in adding into paragraph, I think it's 8B, a financial interest or well-being of a friend, relative, close associate, of which you are aware, or something along those lines. I think it's a fair point that Mrs. Trowbridge makes. And perhaps if you leave it to us, we can add some wording in to reflect the thoughts of members. But I think something like of which you are aware, maybe, rather than knowingly.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll take the next two questions, then we'll go back to that. David Brooks, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm happy with the report. 10.1, page 17, and 10.2. Clearly, the recommendation is for a £50 limit. I think it should. I think actually we should be big enough to understand that nobody's going to be influenced by any decision, and to be thinking that you're going to have to report every bit of hospitality at £50. £50, the 25 was far too low. I still think £50 is too low to be registered. It actually raises more questions than it answers. Regularly, a friend of mine invites me for a day out at his Oxford races. He's got a box. Now, he's a close and personal friend. Now, I don't want to be scratching my head as to whether, now I've discussed this before with the monitoring officer, but I don't want to be scratching my head and thinking, should I declare it or not? Because clearly, £50, the day's entertainment I receive and the company, I couldn't buy for £50. So I think something more of £100 would be more appropriate, because if we're not careful, we're confusing things. And if it was £100, it removes any element of doubt that it was given to you as a gift to influence any decision that you might have in any outcome. And I think that's a far more pragmatic approach. Most of us as county councillors are fairly professional people. We've had a lifetime of experience, the majority of us, in business or in whatever field we've been involved with. And we're probably used to receiving this level of hospitality or gift or appreciation. And quite often, I do remember, I remember when I was a borough councillor, and a resident of mine in Uttoxeter was upset the house that she lived in had got a road sign where it said public toilet that pointed directly to a house, but it actually meant 50 yards up the road to the local park. And she wanted to, because the sign was moved, and we managed to move it, she just wanted to say thank you. And she wanted to give me a bottle of wine. And at the time I declined it. And I think she was actually quite upset and put down by that, Chairman. And I think the limit should be a more pragmatic limit that stops any confusion and stops the nonsense of some of the complaints that many of us have to deal with. Thank you, Chairman.
All right. Thank you, David. Julie, I think the £50 came from the family of councils, really, didn't it? It wasn't our limit.
No, it's the outcome of the consultation, Chairman. The outcome of the consultation.
Yes,
they sought views, so that must have been the majority figure, really.
I think that's something we'd have to pass on to the full council, and they'll have to make a decision, because I think it'd be difficult. Alistair Little, please. He's been waiting a long time. Sorry, Alistair.
Not a problem. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to echo really what David Brooks put there as well, because I do think £50 is a bit silly. We are grown-ups, we are professionals, and in my role as a councillor, I do go to the agricultural show, get parking and a mouldy sandwich, and that's well more than £50. I think it's about £60, so I'm 20% over the limit. Yet in my professional life, I get given first-class flights, 5-star hotels and helicopters and Ferraris for the weekend for my wife, and it doesn't affect the way that I do business for my clients. So, in that respect, it's sort of dumbing down the fact that councillors can have a view in a very forward-facing, political, important role that we could be bribed by a bottle of wine, where we come here with skill sets which should mean that we could do the job competently and well enough from our private life and our private businesses as well. On that, when it comes to financial declarations, I think we're going into the realms of complete and utter madness, trying to say families and friends, and the whole thing needs to be taken out of the report. Yet, willingly or knowingly, we live in a world where habeas corpus is the prime focus of our legal system. We're not into the French system of juris lipsus. So I think we need to actually get a grip of this.
Absolutely.
If we are doing something illegal, there are monitoring processes in place, and it doesn't need to have this codified format of madness. And to say that I need to declare financial things for my wider family and my wider friends, we're going into the berserk. Do I have to declare things for my private clients in my business as well? Because they're on certain declarations. They change all the time. They're very fluid. And on top of that, I would be very, very, very careful in declaring them, because a lot of these very senior worldwide businessmen that would be very upset should I declare their name or their company in a Staffordshire County Council meeting, and you would be facing very severe lawsuits. I work for people who have set up small companies that have become big, like Microsoft. I used to work for Paul Allen before he passed away. He would have gone hell for leather at Staffordshire County Council, and it would have been very, very embarrassing. So really be very careful on this, and I would urge you just tear that page out the file and put it in the bin.
Chairman, if I can come back in there, please, if you don't mind. I completely concur.
I've got people waiting.
Yes, I know, but this is actually quite important. And your comments that this for the council, it's for us to make a recommendation to the council, Chairman, and I'd like to propose that the limit was raised. And I take on board what's just been said by Mr. Little. And I think we need to just be mindful. On Thursday, at the County Council meeting, I want to raise serious issues regarding the town centre master plan. Now, because of what Mr. Little has just mentioned, I've got to be very careful how I speak on behalf of my constituents. Can I explain why? And I can't do it briefly. In the master plan, they talk about the redevelopment of the Malting Shopping Centre. The Malting Shopping Centre happens to be owned by a gentleman whose business is actually putting up a new steel fabricated cattle building for me on my farm to the tune of something like £250,000. Now, do I have an interest now in the outcome of the Uttoxeter master plan? There are very serious questions that need answering. And I propose, Chairman, the limit is raised to £100.
Okay, we'll take that on board. We've still got people who want to ask questions, but the bottom line is you seek advice. If you think there's a problem with something, you seek advice from the legal department, Anne-Marie or John Tradewell. We've always done that. Everybody's done that. So that would be my suggestion. Okay. Paul Northcote? Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Councillor Little raises a very significant point in terms of our own working lives that we come into contact. My clients, I have to sign non-disclosure agreements, and I think we will be on a very difficult and tenuous line if we follow the wider implications of declaring everything. I think that the Council Little's quite right. We are quite professional. We operate in very good high standards in terms of our own personal lives and business lives, and I think we should be trusted in this respect. I think the limit is far too low. Bearing in mind, there's things like we invite to the county shows, just been one of them, the Council Little's highlighted, but a couple of tickets for myself and my wife could take quite easily go over the £50 mark, and I don't think that's quite reflective of the times that we live in, if I'm being honest. So I wouldn't be able to support this in its entirety on this sort of level. I think it's far too broad, it's far too unwieldy for us to actually manage as a council, and I think, as Council Little points out quite correctly, it's in the land of nonsense, that particular part. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. John, do you want to come in? John Tradewell?
Just on one specific point in relation to the gifts and hospitality. Just to be absolutely clear, it only applies to when gifts and hospitality are offered to you because you are a councillor. Gifts and hospitality offered to you from friends in your private life do not have to be declared. And the second point is, even if gifts and hospitality are offered to you and they are of a value over £50 or £100 or whatever you set the limit at, that code doesn't say you can't accept those gifts and hospitality. What the code says is you have to declare them in those circumstances. And I think, again, if I want to express a personal view, I think it's right that members do declare gifts and hospitality that are offered to them because they are councillors. That is something I think the public is entitled to know, and it's a principle of good transparency in local government that where you are offered things as a county councillor, that you make that clear to the public.
If I can just interject there, John, and thank you for that, and that's the advice you've given me, and I trust your advice entirely. The issue is, my friend, I wouldn't know him if it wasn't for politics, and we've become very closely friends. But by being there, people ask the question, oh, Brooks is there, enjoying himself, having a good day out, having another jolly on the council. Well, clearly it's not. But if the limit was more reasonable, then there wouldn't be any question to need to be answered. And clearly, a hospitality day at somewhere like your Tuxeter Races, for myself and my wife or members of my family which can actually come in, could be quite a few £100. And I think we need to take a more pragmatic view with this, Chairman. I understand the necessity, and I'm happy with the proposal I've made. Thank you.
Okay. Keith, do you want to join Keith Lunder?
Yes, Chair. Just very quickly, my concern is a bit, I don't know whether it was mentioned by Julie, the fact that this is our own code. This is Staffordshire County Council's code. Yes. This only relates to us, and I've had quite a few issues on standards and everything else at district and other areas like that, and that's been brought up. We have our own standards committee and all the rest of it. And my concern is that if we all at 3 different levels, at parish, at district and at county, all have differing standards that we have now to apply, and this isn't in sync with what everyone else is doing, that alone is going to confuse not just it's definitely going to confuse the public, which is my concern. The whole purpose of this is for us to be seen as trustworthy councillors, as people who are part of the community and producing and running the council in a fair and proper manner. And my concern is that if there's confusion out there, which I think is something that we do need to worry about, then I do think that if our code is far stricter and more stringent than others, not just here but also around the other county councils and throughout the 8 districts and borough councils. I do think there needs to be some work, maybe, just to try and make sure that they aren't all out of sync. And my concern is that, you know, people, newspapers and so we say political elements might well take this up as a banner, you know, to say that you know, there's corruption in other places, there's imbalance in these areas of control and all the rest of it. And I just think that we've got to tread a little bit more carefully and make sure that we aren't completely out of sync across the board. And just from a quick point with what Alistair and David and Paul have said about the hospitality side of things. Obviously, I come from the hospitality industry. Would I, if I invite members or other colleagues to come and see one of my shows that might be, you know, collectively more than 40 or 50 quid's worth of tickets, do I then have to declare the interest that I might be running a show where I have to invite colleagues to them and therefore declare that as hospitality and everything else? I do take the point now that we can always seek advice from officers. But my concern is more about consistency and coordination. I think I've made the point. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I totally agree, Keith, with what you've said. Absolutely. And I do think we're going to have a real problem if we deviate too much from the family of councils. So I've still got hands up. I'm going to go back to these people. Caroline Trowbridge. Caroline, your hand's up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I did want to come back on this. Mr. Tradewell has said most of what I was going to say, but the limit was 25. We're upping it to 50. I can't see why we're having this discussion. We're going in the right direction for the time. What wine David Brooks has been given, David, you need to come to Aldi with me. £3.99, you can get an award-winning wine. So I can have a bottle of wine under 50 quid. And the only thing I've ever been given as a councillor is flowers, which again is under £50. So I'm obviously not moving in the same circles as everybody else on here. But just to record it after £50, I don't see what the big deal is. I'm not with everybody else on this. And like John said, if it's through your business, like Alistair had mentioned, then that's through your business. It's got nothing to do with the council. So just accept it. And I think we're making a huge fuss of nothing. Sorry.
Thank you, Caroline. Paul Northcote, your hand's still up. Paul?
Sorry, Chair, I didn't lower it.
Okay, right. Alistair, your hand?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to go back on that point, we seem to be centring on the £100, £50 thing rather than the financial interest. So I'll centre on that as well. Yeah, we are putting recommendations forward to the council. So I second Councillor Brooks's raising it to 100. I think we've got to try, as John Tradewell has said, if it's in our business and it doesn't affect our view, we've got to try and make sure council life reflects real life, because we're detaching further and further apart from reality unless we up this far, far higher. So I second Councillor Brooks's to put it up to a meagre £100, which doesn't reflect most people's professional lives anyway, but moves us in the right direction. This is just to do a code of conduct for us. So, yes, it needs to mirror the LGA, but let's try and pull the LGA in a better direction as well. Let's try and modernise them to connect local government to real life and real businesses. So I second Councillor Brooks's £100 to be a recommendation to the council. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, can people make sure their hands are down, because we need to take a vote on this, whether with the £100 or not. So can we start off by everybody making sure that their hands are down? Paul, your hand's still up. Alistair, your hand's still up.
Sorry, Chair.
Okay, now all the hands are down. So, councillors, we're going to vote on this. We're going to put a proposal in or the proposal has been made and seconded, that we move the £50 to £100. So, can I have a vote on that, please? Those in favour of raising to 100, please. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, okay. And that proposal is carried then.
Chairman, is that the case? Sorry, point of order.
I'm just having a quick look.
6 votes for, that isn't the majority of the committee.
No, it isn't.
Chairman, the full membership is in attendance today.
Right.
Can you take the show of hands against, please?
Yeah, can we have that show of hands again, please? Those in favour of moving it up to £100. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Have I got 6? Have you got 6? Can you see 6?
6, Chairman, yeah.
So we've got a full committee.
If you take the vote against, please, Chairman.
Okay, can you put your hands up again, please? Those in favour. Sorry, we're
against, Chairman, not again. Against. Sorry, it's my
sorry,
voice.
those against. 6, 7.
7, Chair.
No, the proposal is not carried. Okay, so it stays at £50. The recommendation to the council. Can I just say to members, you will have an opportunity in council to raise that again when it's put forward. Okay. Right, are we content with the debate we've just had on that now then? Can we move on to item 6, the forward plan?
Yeah, sorry, just to interrupt. Have you made notes about the fact that it's not inconsistent? You know, it's inconsistent potentially with other standards across the board, and we need to look at that again. I think
yes, I have.
In favour of that.
We will look at that and make sure it relates to the other family of councils and see where we are with it.
Thank you, Chair.
I should imagine my parish council is still at £25. So, okay, we'll move on then to item 6, which is the forward plan. Lisa?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Before you is the remaining details of the outstanding meeting for this audit year for the 12th of April. It highlights the standing items together with those particular items that you've asked to bring back to the committee for follow-up reports, mainly regarding the special guardianship payment arrangements, the review of joint funding and billing for the CCG's continuing healthcare funding, and also for the review of the arrangements in place to address the risks of cyber attack. So they are the details for the next meeting of the Audit and Standards Committee. Following the outcome of the May elections, the forward plan for the next civic year will be pulled together with the details of the meeting dates as well. So happy to take any questions regarding the information proposed.
Members, anybody want to ask questions? At all? Anybody? Okay, the answer is no.
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
So, that is complete. Forward plan. We can move then to part 2, which is the exemption of the public for the part 2. So I shall read out the exemptions of the part 2, and then we'll have a break if that's okay for 10 minutes. We'll have a cup of tea. Right, the Chairman to move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A, as amended, of the Local Government Act 1972, as indicated below. Right, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to take a break for 10 minutes, please, and we'll see you back here at 11 o'clock on the nail. Okay? Everybody happy?
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chairman.
Yes, Chairman.
Right, see you in at 11 o'clock.